The first thing I noticed was the way she looked at me, like she already knew my life was about to fall apart in the best possible way. And the strangest part? I wasn't even supposed to be there. It was meant to be a joke. A harmless setup. A neighbor teasing a lonely guy who'd been stuck in the same routine for too long. But when I walked into that little coffee shop on a rainy Thursday night, expecting awkward laughter and an easy excuse to leave, I met her. And in one single moment, everything I thought I knew about love, healing, and second chances began to change. Because sometimes life doesn't send you what you want. It sends you what you need. And it usually arrives disguised as something you never saw coming. It started with my neighbor, Claire. Claire was the kind of person who didn't knock, she just appeared. Always cheerful, always too honest, always treating the world like it was a sitcom and she was the main character. She lived across the hall from me, and ever since I moved into the apartment building 2 years ago, she'd made it her mission to fix my life. "You're 33, Evan," she'd say, leaning against my doorframe like she paid rent there. "You work, you come home, you eat sad microwave dinners, and you talk to your plant like it's your therapist." "It is my therapist," I once muttered. Claire rolled her eyes. "You need a woman." I always laughed it off. Not because I didn't want love, but because love felt like something that belonged to another version of me. The version that existed before my divorce. Before the quiet emptiness. Before I stopped believing that someone could choose me and stay. My marriage hadn't ended in flames. It ended in silence. One day, we just weren't talking anymore. And then she left. And I was left with this strange fear that maybe I was only lovable when I was new. Maybe once people really knew me, they always went. So I stopped trying. I buried myself in work. I convinced myself that loneliness was safer than disappointment. Claire hated that. One evening, she caught me carrying groceries inside and sighed dramatically. "This is it," she declared. "I'm intervening." "Please don't," I said immediately. "Oh, I'm doing it," she replied, pulling out her phone. "I'm setting you up." I froze. "Setting me up with who?" Claire grinned. "It's kind of a joke date." I blinked. "A what?" "A joke date," she repeated, like it was normal. "Not like, making fun of you. Just, someone unexpected. Someone you'd never choose. It'll loosen you up." "Claire," I said slowly, "that's insane." "You'll survive," she chirped. "Go. Have coffee. If it's awful, you get a funny story." I stared at her. "You already told her, didn't you?" Claire's smile widened. "She's coming Thursday at 7. Don't embarrass me." And then she walked away. I spent the next 2 days debating whether to fake my own death. Thursday arrived too quickly. Rain poured outside, the kind that made the city feel softer and sadder. I stood in front of the mirror longer than I should have, adjusting my collar like I was preparing for something important. Even though I kept telling myself it wasn't. It was a joke. Just a joke date. That's what I repeated as I walked into the coffee shop. Warm lights. Soft music. The smell of cinnamon. I scanned the room, expecting someone, anyone, awkward. Then I saw her. She was sitting by the window, hands wrapped around a mug, looking out at the rain like she was lost in thought. She wore a simple sweater, her hair slightly messy, her face calm in a way that made the world feel quieter. And something about her didn't feel like a joke. It felt like fate had made a mistake. Then she turned her head. And her eyes met mine. My chest tightened. Not because she was impossibly beautiful. But because she looked real. Like someone who had been through something. Like someone who understood silence. I approached slowly. Hi," I said. She smiled gently. "Evan?" I nodded. Yeah. And you're Lena, she replied. Her voice was soft, but steady. I sat down, suddenly hyper-aware of my hands, my breathing, my entire existence. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Lena tilted her head. So. Claire said this was kind of a joke. I groaned immediately. She told you that? Lena laughed, a small sound that felt warm. She said you'd be grumpy about it. I'm not grumpy, I protested. Lena raised an eyebrow. I sighed. Okay, I'm a little grumpy. Her smile widened. And just like that, the tension broke. The conversation wasn't awkward. It was easy. Too easy. We talked about work, about books, about childhood dreams. Lena had a quiet humor that snuck up on you, the kind that made you laugh before you even realized it. And somewhere between coffee refills and rain tapping against the glass. I forgot it was supposed to be a joke. I forgot I was supposed to leave early. I just stayed. At one point, Lena looked at me carefully. Can I ask you something? Sure, I said. Her fingers tightened around her mug. Why did you agree to come? The question hit deeper than expected. I hesitated. Then admitted quietly, because I've been alone for a long time. Lena didn't look away. I know that feeling, she whispered. Something in her voice made my heart ache. Have you? I asked softly. Lena nodded. My fiancé died 3 years ago. The world seemed to pause. I'm sorry, I breathed. Lena's smile was sad. After that, I stopped going out. Stopped trying. People kept telling me to move on, but, she swallowed. I didn't know how. I stared at her, realizing suddenly. This wasn't a joke date. This was two broken people sitting across from each other, pretending they weren't. My voice came out rough. Maybe Claire isn't as ridiculous as I thought. Lena chuckled through the sadness. Maybe she's annoying for a reason. We sat in silence, but it wasn't empty. It was full. Full of understanding. When the coffee shop began closing, Lena stood slowly. I should go, she said. I stood too, panic rising unexpectedly. Already? Outside, the rain had softened into mist. Lena pulled her coat tighter. Then she looked at me, eyes shining. Tonight didn't feel like a joke, she said quietly. My throat tightened. It didn't, I agreed. Lena hesitated. Do you think we could do this again? Not as a setup. Not as a joke. My heart pounded like it was waking up. I'd like that, I whispered. Her smile was small, but real. Good night, Evan. Good night, Lena. She walked away into the mist, and I stood there frozen. Because somehow, in one unexpected evening, a joke date had become the most serious thing my heart had felt in years. And I didn't even know yet that Lena was about to change my whole life. The next day, Claire cornered me in the hallway. So, she demanded. Was it a disaster? I stared at her. Then said slowly. It wasn't a joke. Claire blinked. Then grinned like she'd won the lottery. Oh, she whispered. Oh my God. And deep inside, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. Sometimes the universe doesn't knock politely. Sometimes it throws you into a coffee shop on a rainy night. And gives you a second chance disguised as a joke. And the real story was only just beginning. I didn't expect to see her again so soon. But the next morning, when I opened my apartment door to take out the trash, there she was, standing in the hallway, holding a small paper bag like she'd been debating whether to knock. Lena. For a second, my brain forgot how to work. She looked different in daylight, softer, quieter, like someone who carried storms inside but still showed up with kindness. Her eyes met mine and she smiled nervously. "Hi," she said. My voice came out too fast. "Hi. What are you doing here?" Lena lifted the bag slightly. I think I left my scarf at the coffee shop last night," she said. "And Claire told me you live here, so." "Claire. Of course." I exhaled, half amused, half overwhelmed. "She told you where I live?" Lena's cheeks turned pink. "She's very enthusiastic." I let out a laugh. That's one word for it. There was an awkward pause, but not the uncomfortable kind. More like the kind that happens when something new is trying to form between two people who aren't sure they deserve it. Then Lena held out the bag. "I brought you something. As a thank you." I blinked. "For what?" "For not making last night feel weird," she said softly. I hesitated before taking it. Inside were 2 warm croissants, still smelling like butter and sugar. My chest tightened at the simplicity of it. "No one's brought me breakfast I stopped myself. In years." Lena's voice was gentle. "I know what it's like," she whispered. "When life stops feeling human." Something about the way she said it hit deeper than I expected. I cleared my throat. "Do you want to come in? Just for a minute?" Lena hesitated. Then nodded. My apartment wasn't much. A little messy. Too quiet. Too single. Lena stepped inside slowly, looking around like she was entering a space filled with invisible memories. "It feels peaceful," she said. I gave a short laugh. Peaceful is a nice way of saying lonely. Lena turned to me. Lonely is a nice way of saying you've been strong for too long. That made me freeze. Because no one ever said things like that to me. People usually told me to move on. To get over it. To try harder. Lena spoke like she understood what surviving actually cost. We sat at my small kitchen table, croissants between us, morning sunlight spilling through the blinds. For a while, we talked like normal people. About the city. About how Claire was impossible. About the coffee shop's terrible music. And then, without warning, Lena went quiet. Her fingers traced the edge of her cup. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "I almost didn't come last night." My heart tightened. "Why?" Lena swallowed. "Because I was afraid it would remind me of what I lost." The air shifted. I didn't push. I just waited. Lena's voice became softer. "My fiancé, Aaron, he used to take me on silly dates. Random places. Ice cream at midnight. Cheap fares. Little moments that felt like forever." Her eyes shimmered. "After he died, I stopped going anywhere that might make me remember how happy I once was." I felt something heavy settle in my chest. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Lena nodded. "I know people mean well when they say time heals." But, her laugh was bitter. "Time doesn't heal. Time just teaches you how to carry it." That sentence felt like someone had pulled it straight out of my own heart. I stared at her. "You're right," I admitted. "It doesn't go away. You just learn how to breathe around it." Lena looked up at me then, truly looked. "And you?" she asked quietly. "What happened to you?" I hesitated. The truth was ugly in its simplicity. "My wife didn't die," I said. "She just left." Lena's eyes softened immediately. "That can hurt just as much," she whispered. I swallowed hard. "It was worse in some ways," I admitted. "Because she's still out there. Living. Moving on." And I kept wondering what was so wrong with me that she couldn't stay. Lena's breath caught. There's nothing wrong with you. I laughed sharply. You don't know me. I know loneliness, she replied. And I know the way people blame themselves for someone else's choices. Her words made my throat burn. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Lena whispered, almost like she was confessing something to herself. I didn't expect you. I blinked. What? I didn't expect to sit across from someone and feel understood. My heart pounded. I didn't either, I admitted. The room felt smaller, warmer, like something fragile was growing between us. Then Lena stood suddenly, as if she realized she'd stayed too long. I should go, she said quickly. Panic flickered in my chest. Wait, I blurted. She paused at the door. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I didn't want the moment to end. Last night, I said, voice rough, you asked if we could do it again. Not as a joke. Lena's eyes searched mine. Yes. I stepped closer, careful, like one wrong move would shatter everything. I want to, I said. But this time, I want it to be real. Lena's breath trembled. It scares me, she admitted. It scares me too, I whispered. She looked down, then back up. But maybe, she said softly, the things that scare us, are the things worth feeling. My heart felt like it was waking up after years of sleep. Outside the hallway window, the city moved like normal. But inside that quiet space between us, something had changed. Lena gave a small smile. Okay, she whispered. One real date. I smiled back, barely believing it. One real date. And as she walked away, I realized something powerful. That joke date wasn't an accident. It was life's strange way of reminding two broken people that love doesn't always arrive when you're ready. Sometimes it arrives when you've almost given up. And you don't even know yet how much it's about to change everything. I didn't realize how much one real date could terrify me. All day, my mind kept spinning in circles. It was ridiculous, really. I was a grown man, not some teenager. But my hands still felt restless, my chest still tight, like something huge was about to happen. Because this wasn't just about dinner or coffee anymore. This was about hope. And hope was dangerous. Claire, of course, acted like she had personally orchestrated a romantic miracle. When she saw me in the hallway, she leaned against the wall with a smug grin. So, she said slowly, when's the wedding? I groaned. Claire. She laughed. I'm kidding. Mostly. But Evan. I've never seen you look like that. Like what? Like you're awake again, she whispered. That word stayed with me. Awake. Because she was right. For a long time, I hadn't been living. I'd been surviving. 2 nights later, Lena and I met again. No setup. No joke. Just two people choosing to show up. I picked a small restaurant downtown, nothing fancy, just warm lights and quiet music. The kind of place where you could actually hear someone breathe. When Lena walked in, my heart stopped for a second. She wore a deep blue dress, simple but elegant, her hair tucked behind one ear. She looked nervous, like she wasn't sure she belonged in a moment like this. And maybe she didn't feel like she belonged. Because grief has a way of making you feel like happiness is for other people. I stood quickly. Hi, I said. Lena smiled softly. Hi. We sat down, and for the first few minutes, it was gentle conversation, safe topics, small laughs. But underneath it all, something deeper waited. Like a storm behind calm skies. Finally, Lena looked down at her hands. Can I be honest? She asked. I nodded. Always. She swallowed. I almost cancelled. My stomach tightened. Why? Her voice trembled. Because part of me feels guilty for being here. The words hit me like a punch. I leaned forward. Lena. She shook her head quickly. It's stupid, I know. Aaron is gone. I know that. But, her eyes filled. Sometimes it feels like if I smile, if I let myself feel something again. I'm leaving him behind. My chest ached so hard it felt unbearable. I understood. More than I wanted to. I know that feeling, I whispered. Lena looked up. I took a slow breath. When my wife left, I spent months wondering if it was my fault. And then, I hesitated. When I finally started feeling okay again, I felt guilty for that too. Her brows furrowed. Why? Because pain became familiar, I admitted. It became proof that I still cared. And happiness felt like betrayal, even though it wasn't. Lena's tears spilled. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. My voice broke. Neither do I. For a moment, the restaurant faded away. It was just us. Two people sitting across from each other with hearts still bruised. Then Lena whispered something that shattered me. I miss him so much. I reached across the table, slowly, giving her space to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. My fingers wrapped around hers. I know, I said softly. Lena squeezed my hand like she was holding on to the only steady thing in the world. And then, quietly, she said. I didn't think I'd ever feel safe again. My throat tightened. You feel safe with me? Lena nodded, tears shining. Yes. And that scares me most of all. I stared at her. Why? Because if I let you in, she whispered, I could lose you too. The words were barely audible. But they carried the weight of everything. I stood up suddenly, unable to stay seated with so much emotion between us. Come with me, I said. Lena blinked. Where? I exhaled. I need air. And I want to show you something. She hesitated, then nodded. Outside, the city was quiet, streetlights glowing softly. The night was cool, the kind of night that made everything feel more honest. We walked slowly, side by side. Neither of us spoke for a while. Then Lena whispered, Evan, what if we're just two lonely people holding on to each other because we're afraid? I stopped walking. I turned to her. That's not what this is. How do you know? I stepped closer, my heart pounding. Because loneliness doesn't feel like this. Lena's breath caught. Then what does it feel like? She asked, voice trembling. I looked at her, really looked. It feels like my chest hurts when you're not near, I admitted. Lena's eyes widened. It feels like I want to protect your sadness, I continued. Her lips parted slightly. It feels like, you walked into a coffee shop as a joke, and somehow became the most real thing in my life. Tears slid down Lena's cheeks. I'm scared, she whispered again. I lifted my hand, brushing a tear away with my thumb. I'm scared too, I confessed. But maybe courage isn't the absence of fear. I leaned closer. Maybe courage is choosing love anyway. Lena's breath trembled. The street was silent. The world held its breath. Then Lena whispered, Evan. Yes? If you kiss me. I froze. Her eyes searched mine. Make it mean something. My voice cracked. It already does. And then I kissed her. Not rushed. Not desperate. But slow, gentle, like a promise. Like two souls finally letting go of the past just enough to touch the future. Lena's hands gripped my coat, trembling. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine, crying quietly. "I thought love was over for me," she whispered. "It's not," I said softly. "It was just waiting." She laughed through tears. "In a joke date?" I smiled. "In the most unexpected place." We stood there for a long moment. And for the first time, Lena's face didn't look haunted. It looked hopeful. A few weeks later, Claire caught me coming home with Lena beside me, both of us laughing. She stared. Then she pressed a hand to her chest dramatically. "I deserve a trophy." Lena laughed. I shook my head. "You deserve to stop meddling." Claire grinned. "Never." That night, as Lena sat beside me on my couch, her head resting gently on my shoulder, she whispered, "Do you think we can really do this?" I looked down at her. "Yes," I said. "Not because it'll be easy." I kissed her hair softly. "But because we both deserve to live again." Lena's eyes shimmered. And in that moment, I realized the truth. Life doesn't always change with grand moments. Sometimes it changes with a neighbor's ridiculous joke, a rainy night, and one brave decision to try again. Because love doesn't replace what you lost. Love reminds you that you're still here. And that alone is a second chance worth everything. I didn't realize how much love could feel like learning to breathe again. In the weeks after that night, Lena became something I never expected. Not a replacement. Not a distraction. But a gentle presence, like warmth returning to a house that had been cold for too long. We didn't rush. We didn't pretend the past didn't exist. Some nights we laughed like teenagers, sharing fries on a park bench, teasing each other about Claire's endless matchmaking. Other nights were quieter. Some nights, Lena would go silent mid-sentence, her eyes drifting somewhere far away, and I would know she was remembering Aaron. And sometimes, I would catch myself staring at an old photo of my wedding day, grief rising like a wave I thought I'd already learned to swim through. Healing wasn't a straight line. It was messy. It was honest. But somehow, it was real. One evening, Lena sat on my couch, her knees pulled close to her chest. "Do you ever feel like you don't deserve this?" she asked softly. I turned toward her. "This?" She gestured vaguely between us. "Happiness. Love. A second chance." Her voice trembled. "Like, maybe we're only borrowing it." I stared at her for a long moment. Then I reached for her hand. "I used to think love was something you earned by being perfect," I admitted. Lena's eyes lifted. "But I don't think that anymore." She whispered, "What do you think now?" I squeezed her fingers gently. "I think love is something that finds you when you're brave enough to stop hiding." Tears filled her eyes. "I'm still scared," she confessed. "I know," I whispered. "Me too." Then I leaned closer, resting my forehead against hers. "But I'd rather be scared with you, than numb without you." Lena let out a shaky laugh through tears. "You always say the right things." I smiled softly. "No," I corrected. "I'm just finally saying the true things." A month later, Claire threw herself into our lives like she was part of the relationship contract. She insisted on inviting us to a small apartment gathering. "Just friends," she promised. "No pressure." Lena hesitated before agreeing. Crowds weren't easy for her. New people weren't easy. But she came anyway. And I watched her that night, standing near the balcony, smiling politely while her fingers nervously twisted her ringless hand. I stepped beside her. "You okay?" She nodded too quickly. "I'm fine." But I knew that tone. It meant she wasn't. I lowered my voice. "We can leave." Her eyes flickered. "You do that?" "Lena," I whispered. I would do anything to make you feel safe. Something softened in her face. And then she whispered something that made my chest tighten. No one's ever said that to me before. I turned toward her fully. They should have. Her eyes shimmered. Then she looked away, swallowing hard. I keep thinking about Aaron tonight, she admitted quietly. My heart ached. I'm sorry. Lena shook her head. Don't be. It's just, she breathed in deeply. He was the last person I thought I'd build a future with. She looked at me then. And now. I'm standing here, feeling something again. Her voice broke. And I don't know how to hold both. I took her hands in mine. You don't have to choose, I said softly. Lena blinked. What? You can miss him, I continued. You can love what you had. My throat tightened. And you can still let yourself have something new. Lena's tears spilled. That doesn't make me a bad person. No, I whispered fiercely. It makes you human. She stared at me like she was seeing sunlight after years of darkness. Then she leaned forward, resting her head against my chest. And in that moment, surrounded by noise and laughter, it felt like the world narrowed down to just one truth. Love wasn't about forgetting. Love was about continuing. Later that night, Claire approached us with a glass of juice like she was about to deliver a speech. I just want to say, she began dramatically, I knew this would happen. I groaned. Lena laughed softly. Claire's eyes softened for the first time. No, really, she said quietly. I've never seen Evan look alive like this.